Hey everyone. Hey, real quick. I just want to check to see if you're a member of the Coaches site, because if you're not and you're tuning into the show, well, you probably should be. There is no cost or commitment to sign up, and you're going to be connected to a community of over 35,000 coaches representing 54 countries and 25% of the hockey coaches globally. Click the link in the show description below to get started. We'll even throw in a 10-day free trial so you get full access to our suite of premium content featuring some of the top coaches in the game, including many who have appeared on the Glass Now podcast. If you love coaching, you're going to love the Coaches site. And now, on to the show.
Thank you. Well, I just want to say one quick story. Howie was talking about cell phones. Gary, I think you asked that question. When I was in junior, and this was about the time where it was starting to change a little bit, I used to carry a briefcase on the bus with me, and the players would have to put their cell phones into it. And they used to get mad at me for the first month or month and a half.
Old school briefcase?
Old school, like it was Inspector Gadget. Anyways, they kind of wised up to it. So sooner than later, we're in the hotel room. I think it was in Prince George the first time it happened. It was about 3:30 in the morning and a phone started going off. So they started setting the alarms on their phones. 3:30, 2:30, 1:45 in the morning. So I was spending all my night trying to turn these off, and then that was the end of the briefcase. So I gave up at that point.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, that's a great place to start. When you look at those opportunities, I think there's been a lot of stories tonight about just the importance of just human connection within all of our respective teams. You guys are coming off a road trip. How intentional is maybe the coaching staff about just designing for that interaction with the players and building those bonds early in the season?
Well, I think for whatever level you're at, the early road trip is an important thing for your players, and it gives them an opportunity to be together without distraction. So yes, we still have phones and you still have all that other stuff that's around the players today. But more often than not, they're with each other. They go for dinner together. They spend time at the rink together. They're on the plane and the bus together, all that stuff. And I think it's such an important thing for you to create a little bit of team chemistry and to get the players familiar with each other. Because as much as we think they know each other, they really don't until they have the opportunity on a longer road trip like we just had.
Totally. So you guys are coming off a big win last night in Philly. You landed this afternoon, right? So I spoke to Ryan a couple weeks ago. I had assumed that because there was the home game on Wednesday, that you guys were on a homestand, but did a quick Google and realized, man, you guys, in the last week you've done Toronto, Ottawa, down to Nashville, up to Philadelphia. So just a lot of gratitude. Not that we're not great company, but I know that you're taking time out from your family on a day off. So thank you very much.
Yeah, no problem.
But I've come to appreciate that the National Hockey League, from a coaching perspective, is very much a constant state of triage. Meaning, when you would have been in Kelowna in the Western League or Stockton in the American League, you might have 3 or 4 days of practice to fix a problem. But in this scenario here, you guys have 1 day of practice, you're right back at it. How do you and your staff go about evaluating, we've got one practice, what's that one thing that we want to maybe get a bit better at?
Yeah, that's the challenge that we do face at our level. And I guess when you think about it, it might be similar to what some of you have with your teams. But I went over it a few days ago when you do your monthly schedule and your planning for your team and your travel. We have maybe 5 for sure practices, maybe 6 this month, and that's it. So the players have mandatory days off that we have to actually schedule each month. They get 4 of them. So we can't have anything to do with the players on those days. A travel day like today is not considered one of the days off because they're traveling, coming back here. So it makes it difficult for us to get the practice time. And as we all know, as coaches, that's what we want the most. But we have to find a way to make sure that we're fitting it in where it's a benefit for our players, so they're rested enough to make sure that they're able to execute when it matters the most, and that's game time. So a lot of what we do comes from what we see in our games. So if we feel like our forecheck wasn't very good on a certain night, or we didn't do a good job with our defensive zone coverage, we'll put 2 or 3 drills in practice for that specific thing the next day. So we would touch on with our players the day after a game. These are the issues. This is what we're going to do to correct it. Then we move on, and then we get ourselves ready for our next opponent.
I'm just curious, like just show of hands in the audience, how many of you will practice more than 5 or 6 times this month? That's wild.
Yeah, that's full practices. Like we do still have some pregame skates, but Aaron and I were talking about our team. We have a lot of younger players, and we have a group of older players who, you know, when you think of older, I hate saying it, but like 34 to 37 years old. But their bodies are significantly different, and the time they need to, you know, recuperate and get re-energized for the next game is different from someone that's 19 or 22 years old. So we have a bit of a balancing act that we play, and that means some days we have optional practices or optional pregame skates for our players to try to get our points across to them.
So if I'm a Flames player, you know, I walk into the rink tomorrow, like what's the process of getting the team ready for practice?
A lot of what we do, like tomorrow we practice at 10:30. We always have a 9:30 meeting, so an hour before. I used to schedule it 45 minutes before, but one of our older players, Michael Backlund, needs more time to warm up. So that's part of what coaching in the NHL is, though. It's kind of a partnership with your players, and that's something that I've learned over the last 8 years. One from the coaches that I've been around, but also you learn a lot of lessons from the players. And that was one that, you know, I took to heart because he is such a professional that he needs basically a full-on warm-up before he hits the ice for practice. Like it's a half an hour of work.
So like in the gym?
Oh, in the gym, full sweat for Michael. Like he needs to get himself ready to go, and he's very rigid with it. And if our meetings run a touch long, then he's like, I don't know if I have enough time to get ready for the ice. So I said, no problem. We're going to make it an hour before. So we started doing that. So as I mentioned, we'll address some issues that we found the night before. So for example, tomorrow we turned over way too many pucks in the neutral zone in Philadelphia. So that'll be one of the things on the whiteboard that we'll discuss with our players. The other positive that we saw was a lack of minor penalties. So we only took 1 minor penalty last game, which allowed us to be a winning team. So we give them some of the things that we have to work on, but also these are the things that we've done well, and this is how we're going to do it in practice. And we'll have some video backup for our players. Not a lot. Like typically we're a 7 to 12 clip team. In our meetings we keep them shorter because I think that's where the attention span is at times. And then we put them on the ice for usually only about half an hour is what we would do with our players. And I know that seems crazy, but we would practice them for 25 to 30 minutes, and then they do some extra stuff after, and some guys do it before too.
I want to ask about the structure in those 25 or 30 minutes, but I'm really curious when you talk about, you know, you're going to meet with your team tomorrow and say, here's an area that we need to improve on, and here's an area that we're doing well. I mean, I think that most of us in this room, man, it's so easy, like when you're driving home after the game, it's just human nature, I think, sometimes to replay all the things that you need that didn't go right, you know what I mean? How do you ensure that you're maybe balancing out that communication to say, hey, like when we're having, whether it's one-on-one with a player or as a team, that, hey, we're going to, you know, maybe sometimes we got to go out of our way to give praise and highlight some things that people are doing that maybe get unnoticed on the stat sheet.
Yeah, and that's something that we try to do a lot of, and I think it's more important for where our team is sitting right now. It's been a little heavier for our team to start the year, but we really do try to celebrate successes. Whether it's a player's first game in the NHL or we have coming up against Columbus our next game, Naz Kadri is playing his 1,000th game in the NHL. So a player hits a milestone, we make sure we make a big deal about it. So we try to get them to, you know, grab hold of it together, I guess is the important thing. And we want them all to recognize whether it's a birthday or someone scored his 50th goal in the NHL, those things all matter, and they matter to all of us. So we really do try to celebrate successes around our room.
That's cool. So those 25 or 30 minutes, are they pretty, I guess, templated in terms of how when you go through practice throughout the year? Is there some variances and perhaps just over the course of your career, like what have you found is maybe that right mix to the cocktail that's practiced?
Yeah, Aaron and I were talking earlier, and when I first started coaching in Kelowna, I felt like I had to have new drills every day. Like I've got to come up with something new for the players. I've got to make it so they're not bored at what we're doing. I don't want them to lose interest in this. And I found over the years that the opposite is the right way to do it. And the reason for it is once the players know the drill, something that's predictable and they're familiar with it, then they can really focus on the execution, and then it becomes the speed at which they do it at. And that's what I've learned, that if they're always thinking about, or am I supposed to turn here, or am I shooting the puck here, or what am I doing? I don't really know this drill. We use a lot of the same drills over the course of the year. And our players understand what we're looking for in those drills. They do the drills, and every time we do them, we expect better execution and more speed, more pace.
So years ago, I coached at UBC, and we had the benefit, kind of similar to Calgary, the Canucks don't have a practice rink. So a lot of the visiting teams and sometimes the Canucks would come and skate at our rink. So of course, like you're in your office, you know, somebody's coming through, you grab your notepad and you go up in the stands and you watch practice. And when this first started happening, like I'd get all geeked up and be like, oh man, I'm gonna get all these great drills. And then the practice would happen. I'm like, what's going on? Like, this is so simple. But it was like every team was so simple. And then, you know, you come to an event like tonight, and I would say that that's really been the theme, is that there's a power in the simplicity. So with that being said, I mean, you know, obviously you wear the hat of an NHL coach. You've also worn the hat of a hockey dad and minor hockey coach. I'd just be curious, what are maybe some of those simple aspects from a skill development perspective that you think are really important?
You know, I guess maybe I look at it now as when you see the players coming up for me, and my son is 15, so I get to see it from that view as well. The passing side of the game is gone. Like, we used to have give and goes, and that was the name of the game. Players used to work around each other and move the puck really well. Maybe part of the frustration that I have a little bit, there's a lot of great skills coaches out there, but it's become a lot of one-on-one, that I'll take this player on my own instead of the give and go that we used to all use when we were younger. And because that's changed a little bit, I don't feel like the passing or receiving skills are quite the same as they used to be. And that would be one of my biggest critiques when I watch my son's practice. Put the puck on the tape. I know Howie was talking about it. It's the most important thing, that if you want to play the game fast and execute, you have to put the puck on the tape. And when I practice with my son's team, if I go out with them, most of them know me now. And my number one rule to them, it's not really a rule, it's a statement, is I ask them, what am I going to tell you guys? And they'll all say together, if you can't pass, you can't play. So they understand the importance of it. It's just such an important thing in today's game, that if you can move the puck, if you understand where people are around you on the ice, if you know how to support the puck, then you have a chance to be a really good hockey player. And I think that's one thing that I feel has kind of left the game a little bit, and it would be nice to see it come back.
No, I think that's really well said. I love Howie's comment too about only having one puck in practice, and if you lose the puck, you got to go get it, develop those habits. Do you have any drills that you would recommend? And we've never done this before, but would invite you to, if you have any drills that you would recommend for coaches.
Sure. Like when we talk about the passing or the puck protection ones, like for our level, and we talk about simplicity, when our team struggles, a lot of times we'll have the optional skate that I talked about, and there'll be a player going on the ice, and I'm like, you're going out today? Like a Mackenzie Weegar, maybe played 25 minutes the night before, and he's going out for an optional skate. And I'm like, what are you doing? And he's like, I'm not feeling the puck right now, I need to touch the puck. So when we get into those situations, when they need to have it more, we try to make sure our drills are quick and simple. And we started with the drill, we call it Swedish 5-touch, and it's changed now to the Swedish 9-touch. But we would have guys on all dots. Let's call them O's and O's. You take off without a puck, so both guys are coming under the circle. You get a pass from the next guy in line, you're going to touch it back to him. So there's your first one. Carry on around the circle towards your own line again. Next guy in line is going to make a pass, you're going to touch it back to him, and then you're going to open up towards the blue line and then get a pass back. So that's the 5 passes, the 5 touches. So then you're going to just simply go down and take your shot, and you're going to follow your pass and stay at the net. So now we've turned it to 9. So we're asking them to make 2 extra passes to start with and 2 extra passes on this side. So it's just getting them to feel it on and off their stick multiple times, and giving them an opportunity to actually touch the puck and feel it like they want to. And then when you look at some of the things that we do from simplicity side of things, as we've been talking about, when our team isn't moving the puck well, and this was drills that Bill Peters brought in here, that the Red Wings did it from way back when, is just simply straight down the ice. So you talk about different options that you want your guys to use, where we would start with pucks here. Takes 2 strides, he makes a pass to this guy in the middle of the ice. He's going to start attacking the weak side D, who's the coach, kicks it out to this guy who's driving wide. We pick a coach that's standing in this area to create a little bit of room, and we have a guy come into that far side post here. So we make our guys do it in 5 seconds. If someone misses or bobbles the puck, they got to go back, start again. So it's pretty simple. They stay down at this end. Once everybody does it, they all do the same option coming back. And then once we do that one time through, we have another option for them when we're coming into the offensive zone. You kick it out to this guy. He picks the coach, as I mentioned. Now he's going to cut in, and he's going to shoot off heels. So we have a guy ending at the post, and the shot's coming from the dangerous part of the ice. All guys do it down that way. They all do it back. And then we end up with one that pass comes cross ice. Above tops the circles for a quick shot. Straight down, straight back. So that's as simple as we get with our passing drills in those situations. And as I mentioned, if you don't get down the ice quick enough, go back and do it again. If someone misses a pass, or as Howie says, puts it in their feet, you got to go back and do it again. So it's a simple drill. And I will say, when I did it with my son's team last year, they couldn't do it. And they were 14 years old at that time, and they couldn't do the drill. So we did, a lot of the practice was just that. No, go back, go back. But they get it. Yeah. Eventually, they figure it out. So when we find ourselves in situations where we're not moving the puck well enough, it's a lot of one puck, one touch, quick puck movement things. And when players aren't feeling the right way, they go on for a pregame skate. And a lot of times it's simply, coach will rim a puck around the wall. They have to pick it off the wall. They'll skate off the wall. They'll leave it. Coach will rim another one. He'll pick it off the wall, grab a puck, skate off the wall. He'll leave it. They'll do it 4 or 5 times. They'll do a rebound board. You know the rebound boards that we see where a player will skate towards it and the coach will throw a pass off it. He's got to control it off the board, make a move, and shoot it. He'll circle back again, off the board, make a move, shoot it. That's what they look for, is to get their puck touches. So those are the types of drills that we try to create and put them in when they're not feeling the way they want to feel with the puck and their passing execution.
I love that. And we did this similar environment with one of your former teammates, Bruce Cassidy. Yeah. And he used the analogy that he's like, the top golfers in the world still go out and hit 300 balls before they play around on that feel. And he said in the NHL, it's just, how important that is for these players, even obviously the best players.
Well, along with that story, when I first got here, 2018 as an assistant coach, Matthew Tkachuk was here. I used to watch every pregame skate when the D part of the pregame skate where they shoot on the goalies at their one end. Matthew would always skate down there, and in my head I was always like, he just doesn't want to do what the forwards are doing. Yeah. He wants to stand in front of the net and just tip pucks. Yeah. Well, who's the best tipper in the NHL and who's the best player around the net in the NHL right now? Matthew Tkachuk.
No kidding.
He did it every day. He'd stand in front of them, D-man would rip it at him, and he'd actually tell them, shoot it at me. Like, rip it at me, and he'd just touch everything. High, low, everything. And that's why he's so good around the net front today, because that's what he did. And it's such a simple skill, but you have to be willing to do that.
Well, you were at the World Championships last year. We were over there with the IIHF does a coaching symposium, and Canada last year, you were on the coaching staff, but a lot of star power on last year's team. You're getting the opportunity to maybe observe some different players. Any other practice habits, kind of as you pointed out with Matthew, just on some of those habits now players develop their
it was a great team. Unfortunately, it turned out to be not a great experience because of the end result there, which was the tougher one to swallow because there were so many great players there. But for a coach like me who loves to learn, and I try to take everything in, I listen to what people talk about, like 2 situations where I found myself in one of the practices standing, watching Sidney Crosby skate, how powerful he was at the time on the ice, and Braden Shen was beside me, and I've known from junior way back when, and he saw me kind of staring at him, my mouth was probably open, like, are you kidding me? Yeah. Like, he's this age and he can still skate like that? And Shenner was like, he's like, yeah, we still think the same thing about him too. Yeah. So he must have saw how I was looking at him. But the one thing that I was blown away with him was how strong he was on the puck. Like, different level. If he had his stick on the ice, you're not lifting his stick off the puck. And there was even times where you'd watch him with one hand, and most people can think you just bang a stick and it would pop up. Not a chance. which was something that I took away, and I told some of our players, like, listen, we got to get much stronger on the puck than we currently are. When you see the best in the world do it, there's a different level.
Those interactions with the players, they can happen in perhaps in like an office environment. It might be when you're addressing your whole team, but I sense that just given again, we've really come to appreciate that, once that NHL season starts, you guys are on a treadmill, and it doesn't stop until 82 games are done. But when you're on the ice in practice, whether it's yourself or your staff, can you leverage that opportunity to maybe not have like a full-on meeting per se, but just, maybe those little nudges and interactions can help, sharpen a player's focus or maybe point them in an area of their game that can benefit?
Totally. I think that happens before practice, on the ice, and after practice as well. So I feel like my role is really to oversee and run the practice. So I pay attention to the overall work ethic and how our execution is. Our assistant coaches a lot of times do such a good job of, if Trent's responsible for our defenseman, he's always around the D-man in whatever drill they're doing. So he's providing feedback at that time. Dave Lowry will grab people in the end of a drill or while they're waiting in line to go again and remind them of certain things that we're looking for. So there's always touch points that you can get with your players. Because we don't have a ton of time, it becomes more important that we do hit on it more regularly than just one coach saying something on a Tuesday and not mentioning something again until the following week.
For sure. I don't know if you can relate to this growing up in Cranbrook, BC, and I'd be curious to know from the audience, but like I can remember playing minor hockey. There's two ways you broke the puck out of your zone. You either passed it up to the winger on the half wall or you shot it off the glass. And if that puck went anywhere close to the middle of the ice, that was just like the worst sin in hockey. And you look at how much the game has changed today. I mean, it's just like, especially, the defensemen are, in a lot of cases, the most skilled players on the ice. And the puck can be broken out in so many different ways. And I sense that, there was a time not too long ago for a lot of coaches, everything started with that D-zone structure. And, we've certainly observed that, sort of the heartbeat of your team is how you break the puck out. I'd be curious, any, I guess, principles that you might have with your team that isn't so much saying, hey, we're always going to go from here to here, but here's how we're maybe some solutions to solving problems that you might encounter on the ice.
Yeah, sure. The one thing with our team, like there's a lot of players around the NHL that are burners, like the guy up north we all know can skate like the wind. We don't have a lot of burners like that. Sam Honzek is probably our closest guy who's a young player that can really skate. So for us, we have to make our team game a little bit more predictable for our players so we know where the puck is going. So we do set up our breakouts that way so we feel like we can play faster by being more predictable. So when I say that, one of the things that we look for, if you have a strong side D-man going back for a puck on his side, our number one priority is to try to get the net. So his job is to try to get the net, either via a wheel or skating it there, a D-to-D pass to his partner, a hard rim, any situation where
you want to
he
get
can
to the other
net.
side of the ice.
So all of our forwards, when they're coming back, they're all in motion and they know exactly where that puck's going, so there's no confusion.
Does that help them maintain speed too? Is that part of the
100%.
strategy? Yeah.
So our team, as I mentioned, we play faster when we're connected that way.
Yeah.
If it's the opposite situation where, let's call it the weak side D-man is going back for a puck that's soft chipped into the zone, that puck 9 out of 10 times is going right back up the strong side wall.
Got it.
So our players know exactly where that puck is going to go, and they're able to be there and arrive on time and play the game faster. And it's something that we learned, or I've learned from watching Pete DeBoer's teams in Dallas, that he's very predictable with what he wants his team to do. They just execute better than everybody else, even though they know it's coming, which is something that's really impressive to me.
Got it. So I thought Romer made a great point in his presentation when he talked about the skill development where a lot of the drills are sub 15 seconds and just getting those reps in. I think, one of the things that, just traveling around, walking into hockey rinks, you see, the minor hockey practice and there's like, 3/4 of the team is on a knee and one team's just doing like these 5-on-0 breakouts and it's kind of predictable. And I'd be curious to know, like, when you talk about those aspects of the breakout, is there any drill recommendations or way of maybe teaching that in ways where it's not all 5 players on the ice, but you can maybe work on some of those details and routes to build good habits.
Totally. And I go back to my predictable point or familiarity point, using the same drill. Like we use this breakout drills, like we have a couple of them, but we use them all the time. So the players know the drills and they're consistent with it. When you talk about the knee on the ice thing though, or players like waiting in line or leaning on the boards, my son had a bad habit of doing that. And I said, Bud, one of these days you're going to get a coach that isn't going to like it. So you're not going to want to do that anymore. You got one this year.
Yeah, that's good.
Loved it. So our breakout drill that we use, it goes both ways. So we have 6 players going at once. And this is one that kind of, as I mentioned, we set it up so it's the strong side D-man going back, and then we flip it to make it the weak side D-man. So we'll start with the 2 D-man at the blue line, and we'll have 2 forwards in here and a coach in this area. So to start with, the same thing's happening out at the other end. Okay, the puck would just be dumped in the opposite corner. So we'll throw a puck into this area. So we know with this D-man, they're both backwards to about the tops of the circles, then they'll pivot, and then we work on scanning, checking shoulders multiple times so they know where pressure may be coming from, where their options will be. We know because that strong side D-man's going back for pucks, his partner's going to the net front, then he's going to release for him. So whatever option we're going to work on that day, this puck is going weak side. So our players now are returning into the zone inside the dots as they're coming in. They know that puck is going this direction. So the one thing that we work on is getting our strong side winger higher up towards the blue line. It helps us get away from any pinching D-man. And the second thing that we touch on a lot of times is our support that comes underneath, and the speed comes up the dot line. So we ask that inside guy or that middle forward to be dot line so he's not an easy check, because as soon as he comes out into this area, one guy can check both of those guys. So this is an area of the ice that teams like Colorado and Edmonton, with the players that they do have, they hit this area really well and make it hard to defend. So we work a lot on these type of plays. Whether it's, like I mentioned, you're coming around the wall D to a partner. If he keeps it going around the wall to his partner here, he has to learn how to handle a pinching coach that's going to come down on his backside. So he has to be able to use his body the right way and still be in a position to bump it back to his partner that is now coming through with speed up that dot line. So now we're leaving the zone in a hurry. So this guy's job is to roll off that pinching coach. These 2 guys attack up the ice. And again, much like the option in the Jimmy's drill that I showed, you can do different things when you enter the line with your team, whatever you're working on. The D-man that started the drill, he would come up through the hash marks and he would really look to join with pace. So now they take their shot, we have a guy stay at the net, and there's always some sort of offensive zone play coming after that entry option. So whether it's an early low to high where we want our D-man just to shoot it with traffic in front, or a low to high where we want him to sprint the middle of the ice, or we get some sort of offensive zone option off of that. So that's typically what we would look like for a few repetitions for our players. And then when we go up to the strong side, as I mentioned, we typically would, when we would use that weak side D-man to go back for a puck. So same setup, now we just switch sides, forwards, coach now dumps it in. Coach is gonna move over here and he's gonna pretend he's a forward. So this guy's coming over and he's gonna stand him up. So he's going to hold up this coach, so his partner's going back for this puck into here. We move our D-man to the hash marks in that area. This puck is coming back up the wall to the D-man, who again chips it to this forward who's now worked back and is high. Our other guys, again, dot line speed, and away we go up the ice. So again, very predictable in what we do. And when we do a breakout drill, this is typically the one we start with, and then we continue to progress through our practice from there. But it gives them an opportunity to recognize all the time, okay, which D-man's going back for a puck? Is it the weak side D-man going back? Well, pretty much coming up strong side. If it's the strong side D-man, we know it's going some way, shape, or form out the weak side, so we can be a faster team with it. But the key things that you work on with your guys, like that winger on the wall, have a coach pinch down on him, on your player. Put a little bit of pressure on his backside so he understands what that feels like. The guy coming through the speed through the middle of the ice, it's important that he recognizes not to get outside that dot line. The dot lines really matter on the ice for us. That's where the most important part of the ice is inside those dot lines.
Well, I just want to point something out. I think one of the favorite parts of my job, and I feel really fortunate, but I get to go around and watch how practice is done all over the world throughout the season. And one thing that's really sunk into me is that, you know, the amount of things you can do in 60 minutes of practice is infinite. And this is more of an art than a science. But one thing I've observed, and you kind of touched on it here, is that the teams that I watch practice that I think are doing it at a really high level, there's not a lot of cones on the ice. They utilize their coaches a lot to add pressure, to create constraints. And, you know, we had this conversation with, I don't know if you guys know Coach Luke Strand. He's the head coach at Minnesota State, and I went to watch his practice. And, you know, I was asking him about this, and he's like, there's all kinds, like, see all those lines on the ice? He goes, those are the markers you need. And if you can teach players to play within those, you're going to get a lot further. So I just think those are some great points you make and things that we can all adopt. You know, you talk about some of these details and habits. I just, in kind of doing some research for this, I was looking up your roster, like 1/3 of your players were born in the 2000s. And, you know, so that means you've got a third of your players I think are under the age of 20, 24. And we just had a great post on the coach's site recently, and it was from somebody that's in the sports science field, and they said that, you know, physically, like, players don't mature in hockey until they're at least 26 years old. And so my point is that there's obviously, like, you know, becoming a full-time NHL player is very much a process. You don't have a lot of practice time. How do you work with some of these young players to build those details in their game, and what might be some of those details that you think that, you know, young players have to maybe either you know, really focus on, I guess, to become full-time NHL players?
I think one detail for me would be the hard on or at the puck, like being really strong on it, I think is a key thing, because for a younger guy, they think they're strong on it, but they're really not, as I alluded to before, so they learn a lot of lessons in that area. But the more that I've been around, I really think the biggest adjustment and the biggest thing the player needs to learn is how to handle his coconut or his mind, because there's a lot of challenges that these young guys face nowadays, and if they can, you know, work through it or figure out how to be mentally stronger in certain areas, then they're going to have a leg up on making advancements in their own personal game and be a pretty strong member of your team moving forward. And then you can work on the different skills. There's just so many things that these young guys have to deal with nowadays, that once they get a handle on that, then it's things like your puck protection, your passing skills, executing, and then it becomes pace. I know, I think Howie maybe mentioned it when he was talking, everybody talks about pace, pace, but if you're not executing when you're doing it that way, what's the point of the pace? So
good point.
The execution's got to be there first before you hit the pace side of things.
I'd be curious, when you talk about just the mental part of the game, I mean, again, you've coached junior hockey, you've coached, you know, players taking their first steps in pro hockey in the American League. Anything that maybe you've learned, or any resources that have been valuable, and maybe how you help players navigate that part of the game?
I think it used to be kind of taboo for guys to, you know, well, I'm like, is it okay for me to talk to someone? But it's not anymore. It's totally out in the open now, and I think it's the best thing for a young guy to do. Like I said, the social media side of thing, to me, changed everything for these young guys, because you can't get away from it. As much as they can try to get away from it. They can try not to look at it, but if they go on their Instagram, I don't know how it works, all that stuff, but all of a sudden there's a posting about them that they didn't even search up, but it's there, and then it starts to play with them. It wears on them, and it's a tough thing for a young guy to handle. So having the tools and resources to be able to do that, I think, is really important, so that it matters to have somebody to talk to. And I think nowadays everybody's okay with that, which I think is a great thing for our game.
No, and thanks for sharing that. I think that's really important. Within practice, how do you? Is there value? Like, can you manufacture sort of that competitiveness, or like with players at the level you're coaching? Like, do they respond to that, kind of making things competitive in practice?
More so. Like, that's one of the best parts of our team, and what we have to do is we have to create that competition in practice. Whether it's between the D-man forwards, goalies, whatever the case may be, power play, penalty kill, you have to find a way to create that competition. We have a drill called the walrus that we do, where it's just the tops of the circles, and it's basically a 3-on-2 below the tops of the circles, where we draw a line right across the top circles with a black marker. If the puck comes out over that line, those 5 guys are done, so they can't play anymore. So if the forwards score a goal, they get a point. If the D-man skated out over the line, they get a point, which It kind of touches on some of the breakout skills under pressure that they have to use. If the goalies make a save and cover the puck, they get a point. So we play first to 5 is what we do. So it gets to be competitive. So we're trying to get our players to stay on the puck, attack the net as quick as they can, and to finish. D-men have to be able to use each other, use deception to get themselves over the tops of the circles, and our goalies have to fight to freeze the puck. So it becomes competitive because one of the coaches usually stands right on the drawn line that's going across the tops of the circles, which players can barely see. And if the puck comes over it just a touch, they blow it down. Those guys are out. So there's a lot of complaining, a lot of grumbling, but they do get after it quite a bit in drills like that, which is important because you want to create game-like situations as much as possible for them, but you want to make it fun, so they enjoy being on the ice and being put in those situations.
Why is the drill called the Walrus?
I have no idea. No idea.
Just been passed down.
It was Cale McLean's drill, and he said this is a drill called the Walrus, and we went with it, and we kept the name, and it's worked. Maybe the guy that started it was Paul McLean. I'm not sure. Big mustache. I don't know.
That's so good. That's so good. We came out to this event last year, and we had the chance to come watch your team play. And one thing that really stood out to me was just the details that your players had away from the puck, and it really seemed to be like maybe a part of your identity that carried you guys on to a really positive season. I think some of those details, they're maybe not the sexiest to work on at practices, and I think sometimes maybe players don't get introduced to some of those skills until maybe they get to junior hockey. Be curious, like any details that maybe your players hear you preach over and over again, and maybe any suggestions on how you maybe work on those things in practice?
Again, Mark Howell was talking a little bit about the stick details, and Aaron and I were talking beforehand about when I went to California to work with the Flames minor league team in Stockton. We lived in an area, it was Tri-Valley was what it was called. The city was Livermore, and the only ice sheet they had there was basically a 3/4 size rink. And when I went there the first time, I was like, oh boy, what did I do here, bringing my kids here? Because my daughter played at the time too. So I went into the first practice that my son had, and not really knowing what to expect. He was 6 years old at the time, 6 years old. First practice, there was probably 16 kids on that small ice surface. But the coach that they had, who was affectionately called Coach Phil, he had them in 6 stations, 6 years old. And they never stopped the whole practice. And I stood at the glass and I watched, and I was like, this is incredible. Like, I haven't seen this forever, and I think this is the way stuff should be done. And I thought this guy did such a wicked job. And the areas that, we touch on being strong on your stick, at 5, 6 years old, he made the station areas fun for them. So he wanted them to be strong on stick. So he took an old tire in one of his little 6 stations on the ice, put a bunch of pucks inside of the tires, and the kids had to lift the tire up and pull a puck out to be able to shoot it. So they got to play like that. Some of them could barely get the tire off the ground, but you should have seen them trying, and it forced them to really dig into that tire to flip it up.
Great idea.
I loved it. I thought it was the best thing ever. And then the other drill that he had when he talked about puck possession and getting kids to understand how to be hard and strong on your stick, he brought out ringette rings. And in my head, I'm like, a ringette ring? What are we doing here? He had 2 kids. One guy had to have his stick ringette, flipped over into the ring, because as soon as you take it off, that ring could get knocked away, no problem. But if you lean on it, even if a kid's whacking it, it isn't going anywhere.
And they got to steal it from each other.
Learned how to pull around their body, but they had to do it in a way where they had to really push down on the end of their stick. And I thought, again, it was the coolest thing ever, because those kids at a young age learned how hard you had to lean on your stick in order to keep that ring to yourself. But with it, all the top players in the league, they can pull that thing around their body all over the place. Well, that's a drill, not with the puck to start with. They're too young for that, but any kid can pull it around if it's leaning on it on the ice. I thought it was just incredible. And then as the years went on with him, he just progressed them to different things. But I thought he did a fantastic job, and a lot of what your site does, Hockey Canada, USA Hockey, for coaches, you can actually go on to all those sites and there's full practices on there.
Yeah.
So if you're spent at work one day, you're like, I don't know what to do here today in practice, you can go on, I coach a U6 team, boom, there's a practice plan.
Yeah.
It's amazing nowadays, the resources that are out there from like the coaches site that you guys have over these years put together. It's incredible, and the things you can bring to the kids every day. But I loved it. It was one thing that I was worried about going to California, but I feel like it was maybe the best experience that my son had ever had.
Well, I think that's a great antidote too, because I mean, as much as we've got all kinds of resources on our site. Every time we think we have it figured out, we walk into a rink, we see somebody doing something, we're like, shit, that's what a great idea. And I think that's part of the great thing about just this community building. How do you keep it fun for your kids, your players? But I'd be curious too, is there like a drill that, like, if you shouted it out tomorrow at practice, your guys are going to get juiced up?
A lot of drills, like the walrus is one.
Yeah.
They love it. Anything that creates competition. So like we talk about an angling drill, I can show you one more here. We just call it the Ottawa angle, where we would have, let's call it an X and an O. The same thing would be the other side, but one side works only to start with. So let's put a coach closer to the dot on both sides, because these guys would be set up over here as well. So he would make a pass to one of these guys. This opposite guy's job is to get out and take away the middle of the ice, and this guy can attack him, whatever he wants to do, but he's got to get down to try to score. So this guy has to use his feet and his stick to obtain an angle to try to push this player outside, and he's not allowed to skate backwards. So then he's got to work to get his angle. If this guy happens to knock the puck away, he can go the other way and try to score. So it's working on your feet, it's working on your angles, and it's having the players get competitive with each other here, because sometimes the puck gets poked away or someone falls, the other guy goes for a breakout, so then someone's chasing him back the other direction. And that one gets a little bit heated at times, because there's the odd collision that happens, which you don't necessarily want. But the players get into it. So any drill that you can create that puts them in game-like situations that they can have some fun with, they enjoy. They really do. Whether it's a battle game in a small area around a circle, anything that they can, create a little competition amongst themselves, because they never want to be the guy that looks, hey, he didn't win this one, so I got to show up against my teammate here because everybody's watching. So anything you can do that is competition like that, simple one-on-one drills, they'll love for sure.
That's great.
And I would say the other thing that we do, I talked about, sorry, I don't want to get sidetracked, but we call it the ring of fire for our guys. So we're lucky because we have cameras all over the place. So players, they trip over their own feet, they'll fall over the boards trying to change. So we'll put Johnny Cash music, and we'll put a ring around the player on our video, or our video.
Practice video.
Yeah, not practice, usually game video, but we take it from practice as well.
Yeah.
So players falling, whatever it is, and we get some pretty good laughs out of our players, because one of our coaches has got a dry sense of humor, and he makes some comments about them, and it does become quite entertaining. So anything you can do to lighten the load a little bit on them, make sure they come to the rink knowing they're going to have a lot of fun, but the expectation is that they're going to get better every day. I think you're off to a great start if you can create that type of environment.
So I love that, and I'd be curious. Like, I think there was a time, and probably some folks in the room when you grew up, where your coach, like, they weren't there to make you laugh or engage in that sort of banter, but just as the game has evolved, and I think we understand the importance of relationships. Like, again, your teams, I mean, you guys are around each other, probably more than you're around your families. Like, how important is it just to have that human side of it and keep things light at times, and look for those opportunities to.
Very.
Yeah,
very. And as I mentioned, I think coaching at the NHL level, it is a little bit more about a partnership with the players. Yeah. So those are things that you learn along the way, is you have to work with them, they have to work with you. It doesn't work for me to tell them that I want you to do this just because. They'll be like, well, I don't think so. Maybe we can come together on something. So I think over the years, the more you spend time coaching and around elite athletes, that's what it is. It's part of the process for getting better. You want to grow together, and they are the guys that are out there on the ice all the time. I'm the one that stands on the bench. So they're the guys that get to see the action firsthand. So I have to do a good job of trying to work with them.
Well, listen, we're gonna get you out of here. I don't want you to get fined for breaking curfew tonight. You played. I mean, just Cammy listed off the accomplishments that you had as a player, and through that you played for a lot of great coaches. We've talked about how the game has changed, but maybe just what are some of the things that are still tried and true about practice and just how you manage your team that are still important today that you picked up?
Practice for me is expectation is always you practice the way you expect to play the game.
Yeah.
Always. And I learned that from Tom's not here anymore, but I was 16 years old. I played for Tom Rennie in Kamloops. It started with him, and then Don Hay was who took over from Tom Rennie there. That's what they expected every day. So that's what I learned growing up. And all the mentors that I have, you can't float around or take a practice off and expect to be a good player in a game. The game is not a light switch. So we really push our players to practice the way we expect them to play. And that is an important thing for us, and it's something that I will always stand by.
True story. When I mentioned I coached at UBC when I moved to Vancouver, I remember going out to watch a Don Hay practice. Like, I got intimidated watching his practice. It was, but it was like a Broadway play. Like, it was just everybody was on cue. And I was
oh my God. We used to, if there wasn't a fight at least once a week in practice, something was wrong. I know the game's totally changed at the time, but we had to practice hard. And I know the game has changed a lot since then, but that was just expectations. And they were still like, all those guys are your best friends. So it's funny the way it worked, but we won together too, which is important.
Do you have time for one or two questions?
Sure.
I do want to point something, highlight of my night tonight, and I think it speaks to why we're all here. And so, Ryan and I are chatting, and we go to the back, and Tom Rennie, obviously, has been here with Hockey Canada and coached the National Hockey League, and he's been great to us and a prince of a guy. But he's in that corner over there, and Ryan and I are getting mic'd up, and you could just see. How long ago did you play for Tom?
1992.
Okay, figure out who's better at math here. So about like 34 years, I think.
Yeah.
But just watching you guys just sort of connect in that moment, you realize like how strong that bond is. And I think it's easy to say, well, that was, major, junior, and, you guys have gone on to, coach pro hockey and play pro hockey. But I think that moment and those relationships you build, like that's, we can all do that, and that's the power of coaching that you have with players, that, you can, walk into a room or walk into a rink like 35 years later, and, it's like you guys were on the same team again. So really important that everybody's here. Thank you for joining us. Before we pass off, just want to say thanks to Kevin, Candace, and Logan and for hosting us here. This has been awesome. And again, we work with a lot of organizations. Nobody else does this except for Hockey Calgary. So this is really cool. Hands up right here.
What have I learned from Dustin Wolf? For me, probably the message that I've taken from him, watch him along the way, is no matter what people say about you, or if people think you can't do it, you can do it. He's the greatest example of someone that's persevered when people have always told him that you're too small to be a goaltender at the NHL level. And I love that about him, and that's why he's going to be an elite goaltender for us for many years. We're very lucky to have him. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. All right. Oh, one more here.
Yeah. To reset, I think much like I alluded to, after good or bad, I think you address the issue that you saw the night before. I think you recognize the things that you do well. You either work on it in practice or show video of it, then you move on. You put it to rest. So you address whatever's ailing you ASAP, and then you turn the page and get ready for your next opponent. And I think if your players understand that that's the way you operate, then eventually they become that way as well.
That's a great way to finish. Let's hear it for Coach.
Thank you.
Ryan, thanks so much. Let's keep it rolling on Wednesday.
Thank you.